everybody. Welcome back to the Fred Minnick Show. This podcast is sponsored by The Beeline, a Northern Kentucky bourbon experience, a mashup of 5 Kentucky Bourbon Trail craft distilleries, 6 unique bourbon bars, and 5 bourbon-focused restaurants across from Cincinnati in the edge of bourbon country. Learn more at findyoursippingpoint.com. That's findyoursippingpoint.com. And folks, we are going to get out of this mess. We are going to get out of this. We're going to come out on the other side, and you're going to want a bourbon. And I'm telling you, you're going to want to go to a great restaurant in the northern Kentucky area. So you want to get that ready, get your plans ready, to get them together, and go to findyoursippingpoint.com. Look, my guest today is none other than the Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, the Grammy Award winner, the Academy Award winner, the Golden Globe Award winner, one of the most iconic musicians in our lifetime, the Talking Heads lead singer, David Byrne. David is an amazing, amazing talent. I am just so thrilled and honored that I got an opportunity to sit down with him and have a bourbon. Now, this interview took place in 2018 at Bourbon Beyond. This was originally slated to be for my Amazon Prime show, Bourbon Up. But if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see that the way I looked, and I was all muddy. We got rained out that next day, so I was like covered in mud. There was a big spot in my pants where it looked like a, you know what happens when you see like a spot in someone's pants. And that's what it looked like with me. You're going to see that if you're watching this on YouTube. But if you're just listening from your podcast device or however you or your phone or however you listen to your podcast, you won't see it. But the interview from a looks perspective was very, very weird. Now, Bourbon Up is owned by the magazine I'm the editor-in-chief for, called Bourbon Plus. If you're not a subscriber to that, you're missing out, because we have a lot of great high-level bourbon articles in there. So you can go to bourbonplus.com to subscribe to that. We're going to get into the heart of this interview, but first, a word from... So David Byrne is this guy who's just really brought into the pop culture. He seemed into our pop culture. He's so important. And even now, even as his, the 1980s were basically the decade he owned. I mean, he just, you hear his music everywhere. But even now, like, he's still out there touring. His music is still amazing as a soloist. But he's still adding to the narrative of what it is to be human. He wrote an op-ed for the Wall Street Journal, which was also repurposed by Reasons to Be Cheerful. And he's talking about the pandemic in which we're all facing. And I want to read you a part of this. It's ironic that as the pandemic forces us into our separate corners, it's also showing us how intricately we are all connected. It's revealing the many ways that our lives intersect, almost without our noticing. And it's showing us just how tenuous our existence becomes when we try to abandon those connections and distance from one another. Healthcare, housing, race, inequality, the climate. We're all in the same leaky boat. That's David Byrne in the Wall Street Journal and Reasons to Be Cheerful. And you're going to hear that man and just how deep he is and everything. But you can see interviews with him all over the place. Just Google David Byrne and YouTube or whatever. But you're going to get to see a side of David Byrne that I don't think has ever really came out. First of all, it's my show, so we're not talking about necessarily his music. We're talking about drinking and like the things that he likes to drink. And it turns out David Byrne is a huge bourbon fan. So I busted out one of the first batches of Kentucky Al. And I can't wait for you to see the look on his face, or if you're watching this on YouTube, to see the look on his face when he takes a sip. If you're listening, just know he was really taken aback by it. So David Byrne is from the Maryland area, and my trivia questions always are based on the musician, and I like to somehow tie them back into whiskey. And if there's a music connection, I always like to bring that together. But Maryland was actually a great whiskey state once upon a time. So my trivia question is, what was the top Maryland rye? That's going to be coming up after the interview. The best bourbon that we probably have here is Kentucky Owl, and there's no way you'll find that. You won't find this in New York because it's not distributed there. So this is a pretty rare bourbon. This is one where people camp out overnight for to taste. So
drink it first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just like they do the iPad, people will camp out for this like overnight.
Now the one that you were talking about, you did it as a blind taste test, so they can't blame it on you. All they can blame on you is that you publicized.
That's exactly right.
How well received it was.
And I was fair, right?
Yeah.
So what was your first drink? Do you remember your first drink?
It was I grew up in Baltimore. It was malt liquor. Colt 45, I think it was.
Was it in a paper bag?
No, it was in these stubby little cans.
Oh, nice.
I was underage.
Oh.
And well, you asked.
That's true. I did.
I got really sick. I had no idea what I was doing.
Now, what do you think of this?
This is really nice.
I look at this, and the first thing I think of is it's got this incredible color to it. When it goes in that barrel, it's penetrating that wood every single day, in and out of the wood. And when it goes in the barrel, it's as clear as the water from your tap. And so that color is an indication of its time in the barrel. And so when we see it, and it's nice, this beautiful amber color, it's got a caramel hue to it, some purple hues there in the end. It's really a good indication.
How long has this been in the barrel?
This is this last time it was 11-year-old.
Wow, 11 years.
11 years old.
Wow. The minimum is a year and a half, 2 years?
Actually, no, to be bourbon, there is no minimum. It just has to touch the barrel. By law. Just by law.
You can pour it in and pour it out?
Pour it in, pour it out, and then it's still barrel. It's bourbon the minute it touches a new charred oak container. So technically, what you can do is you can take a charred oak little barrel or a charred oak little bucket and walk it over to the steel and pour it in there, and the minute it touches it, it's bourbon. So, what was your first car?
I think my first car might have been a Chevy Nova.
Was it fast?
No. It was a junker. I cut out stickers and put them all over it. It eventually broke down, and I just left it by the side of the highway.
That's awesome.
I think I might have hitchhiked home. It was that bad.
So what do you think of when you think of bourbon?
I have some friends who love bourbon probably more than I do, to be honest. I mean, I like it, but for some of them, it's their drink of choice. So I immediately think of them. Think of my friends. That's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great. That's what bourbon for me is all about. It's about friendships. And actually, a lot of these, I have a lot of personal connections to the people who made them, or I drank them once upon a time with a friend. Mm-hmm. And isn't that what life's all about? Friendships?
I would think so. Some other things too.
Yeah.
Mind you.
You killed it out there.
We won't get into all that, but
yeah.
yeah. Yes.
You killed it out there. What do you? This is Bourbon and Beyond. Did you feel the crowd?
Yes, I felt the crowd. I felt the Beyond.
Yeah?
Yes.
Awesome.
And I restrained myself and didn't have anything to drink beforehand, so now I can.
Now you can. Now let's just taste this. Is it too hot? Does it feel right on your palate? And a little water?
No, I'm good. Tastes good. It's got a lot of the smoky
There's some
stuff from that barrel.
There's some smokiness. I get a lot of confectionery, a lot of kind of like caramel, some vanilla.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's add some water to it.
Well,
you may want to open it up a little bit. If I told you how the alcohol content, you may be mad at me.
really?
Yeah, it's pretty high in alcohol. 60% alcohol, what you've been drinking there.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
That's a lot. But
I'm not driving tonight.
no, I hope not. So that cap will probably bring it down to about 50%. So now it's probably about like
100 proof?
100 proof. You know your proofs.
Yeah. Okay.
When's the last time you played in Kentucky?
Last tour I did. It was about three or 4 years ago.
3 or 4 years ago?
Mm-hmm. I did a tour with St. Vincent, and yeah.
Does it feel any different right now? Did you feel like in coming in it was a little different than like 3 years ago?
Every time's different. Every time I tour the country, I go to a city that I've been to before, I go see something different.
Yeah.
We went to a distillery, a small one, that's run by some women. I think it's the only one. It's run by some women. They are just...
Jepta Creed?
That's it.
Yeah.
They were just putting out their first batch now, I think.
Yeah.
Then we went to a barbecue in, what's it called? Butchertown. Butchertown. We went to a barbecue there. It was good.
And you saw my friend Steve Wilson.
Yes. We went to visit Steve on his farm.
What'd you think of it? It's pretty nice, and he's doing like a really good job there.
He's doing a really good job. Yes. Yeah. It was really good.
Are you into horses? Do you?
Not myself. No.
No.
No. I know how to ride a horse. I have ridden a horse, but I'm wary.
I've
never been injured, but I have friends who have been.
It feels like they're all about to kick you all the time, doesn't it?
I think there's people who just feel comfortable, and the horse knows it, and you're in good hands. And there's other people who, and there's people who. I think another time I was out here with the band, a bunch of them rode some of Steve's horses, and they hadn't ridden for a long time, and they kind of couldn't walk for a couple of days, barely. We tried to give them lotions and stuff, but there's not too much you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I told them, you should wear some extra underwear before you get on that horse.
That it's been a long time since I've ridden a horse, but I've been kicked off a lot of them.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, they're not my friends.
Okay, I'm gonna have to.
Thank you so much for your time. Well, you know what? To a great time at Bourbon and Beyond. Hope to have you back sometime in the future. But thank you so much for spending some time with me.
Thank you.
In Kentucky.
Thank you.
Cheers.
A couple more interviews, you'll be on the floor.
So that's David Byrne. Well, he's warm, he's funny, but he's also eclectic, and he's kind of known for that unique weirdness that we love in our artists. And he has that bit where he carries a brain out on the stage, and man, just seeing him play, it's been 2 years, but it was one of my favorite performances that I've seen in a long time, because he's just one of those artists that you can close your eyes and remember when you listen to him. And I want to go back to something that he talked about. He talked about like his first drink being a malt liquor. In a lot of the interviews that I've had with these artists, a lot of them had said something very similar to that. And malt liquor when I was growing up or in college, malt liquor was not approachable to me even then. So I'll be curious to know if you have ever had malt liquor, and if so, at what point in your life did you have it? Hit me up on social media. You can go to Instagram or Facebook or Twitter. Just tell me when and where and at what point in your life did you have that gross malt liquor? And I want to know what your thoughts were. Also, I'm not going to have any listener feedback because here's why. I am doing this home bar contest on Instagram right now, where I'm asking people to take pictures of their home bar, and they're tagging me in it. And at the end of all this, I'm going to pick my favorite. I'm going to invite them onto a live tasting with me. And so I've been doing these live tastings every night at 9 o'clock on YouTube, where I'm tasting something that's unique and fun and special, or something ordinary. And I'm just trying to put out a lot of content out there as people are home and trying to figure out what's, things to do. And really, I've multiplied my busyness. So make sure you go and, check that out when you get a chance. So the question was, what was the top selling Maryland rye? Now, Maryland rye is this category that, obviously was predominantly rye, but it was also heavy in corn and barley. So in Pennsylvania, they used a lot more rye than they did in Maryland. So Maryland kind of created its own de facto style that really went away, didn't really recover from Prohibition. But after Prohibition, which ended in 1933, there was one brand that came out pretty strong, and it was called Sherbrooke. Now, Sherbrooke was a very well-known whiskey brand to the whiskey drinker, and you would find it, next to something like Old Taylor in a liquor store. So Sherbrooke was allegedly, this is what they said in their advertisements, that they were the best-selling Maryland whiskey, rye whiskey in the market. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see I just popped up a little ad there. I'll make it bigger so you can get a bigger look at it. But basically, they were selling full pints for 95 cents, and that was in 1938. So imagine buying a full pint in 1938, and they called it a weekend special. So I imagine that would be a special weekend. So that's going to do it for this week's episode. A big thank you to Bourbon Plus publisher John Thames for the support and like having this interview at Bourbon and Beyond for Bourbon Up. We cut it, and I'm glad we were able to put it on the podcast. So make sure you're subscribing to the magazine, bourbonplus.com. Right now we have Jackie Zykin, the master taster for Old Forester, in her heroic story. She is our cover story, and we also have some basketball in there for you Louisville Cardinal fans. But that's going to do it for this week's episode. Please hit that subscribe button. Give us a review on the podcast portals. Tell your friends. We're still a new podcast and trying to get it going. We got some great guests coming up. So stick around with us, and you're going to have a lot of good entertainment coming down the pike. Until next week, I'll see you later. Cheers.